Welcome to Unscripted. I'm your host, Addisyn Ueling. In this series, we have candid one-on-one conversations with physicians about common struggles that doctors face in today's world. On today's episode, we will be sitting down with Dr. Tala Kassem to talk about remembering your purpose as a physician on this episode of Unscripted. Thank you so much for joining us today. Can you please start by introducing yourself and sharing a little bit about your background?
Sure. Yeah, my name's Tala Kassem. I am a physician and certified life coach. I went to osteopathic medical school in Arizona and then did my residency in Louisville, Kentucky in ophthalmology. So I am actually a glaucoma and cataract specialist in an academic setting. But I, along the way, got certified as a life coach and I coach with physicians. And that was kind of born from my own experience with burnout.
Yeah, awesome. That's super cool. So what made you choose a medical career?
Well, my mom was a physician. She was a physician in Syria and didn't go through all the testing to be one here in the States. But, I always knew about that and she was always my role model. But I think when it really became something I was serious about was after college, taking some time off from school and realizing I loved science, number one. I loved learning about the human body, how it works. And then I really wanted to help people, interact with people, and be of service.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so important. So kind of explain why you transitioned to a life coach. And is that what you do currently?
So I do both. I do many things. I joke with my husband that I have 4 or 5 jobs, but like I mentioned, after I finished my fellowship in academic medicine and stayed on, I was experiencing burnout just a few months into becoming an attending and really felt like, there's something wrong with me. I just finished training. How am I already so miserable and burned out? And didn't really know what to do. And then, I started my family and had 2 kids. The pandemic happened. So a lot was going on and I kind of was just, getting through it. And then it just kind of hit a wall. My oldest was getting diagnosed with autism and I was really overwhelmed by that. And the testing and appointments and evaluations and therapies, it just felt like too much. So I took some time off from work to focus on him and it ended up being time to focus on myself and really have some time to reflect and realize this isn't working. I don't want to keep going on like this. A friend told me about life coaching and said I should look into it. And there was a woman physician who was coaching. And so I went through her group program. I really didn't know anything about coaching before then and didn't know what to expect. But because it was with other physicians, I was able to buy into it more easily. And it was really a great experience. And that really turned me on to coaching. And I decided at that time I'm going to leave medicine and do coaching full time. So that's why I got certified and started building a business. And I'm still doing that, but I haven't left medicine because I've been able to work through all of my struggles so much. And I'm so much happier and getting a lot more fulfillment from medicine.
Yeah, that's super amazing. I know quite a few physicians who are also life coaches. And that just gives you such a way to relate to those physicians who are also going through that. And that's so cool that you can come out on the other side and be like, I went through that, but now I know how to get through that,
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of misconceptions though with self-care, kind of what you mentioned, like going through burnout, then you focus on self-care. How do you want to speak to those like self-care? Because a lot of people think that's selfish. However, it's not, especially in the medical field. What would you say to that?
Yeah, definitely. I think, the antidote to burnout is self-care. I mean, there's more to it than that, but that is a huge thing, a huge portion of it. And it's something I talk a lot with my clients about. So I agree. In medicine, it's very much, work, and put your needs aside. I mean, I remember being a medical student and working with physicians that never stop to eat or drink. And I'm standing there like dying. How are they doing this? And it's just, to me, it's just not okay. And so I think, it's a culture thing. And so I think it's slowly changing, but, it's kind of a mindset in the whole field. And it's not about, well, first of all, let's say it is selfish and what's wrong with that? What's wrong with taking care of yourself? That's one thing I have to say about that. And then the other thing is I notice when you or when I take care of myself, I show up as a better doctor, as a better wife, as a better mother. So maybe it is selfish, but it is also the other people around me benefit too. My patients benefit from me taking care of myself.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that last thing you said. When we take care of ourselves, we can be the best version of ourselves for other people. And in that way, we actually end up serving people better and giving that care better. How would you say that to those people who don't have time for self-care? Like, how did you prioritize self-care? As you mentioned, being a mom and a wife and having these two different jobs, how do you prioritize that in your life?
Well, I think the key is that, and I think another one of the misconceptions is that self-care is super time consuming, or you have to spend a lot of money, and it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be about getting expensive yoga clothes and going to Pilates every day or getting a gym membership. It could be 2 minutes of meditation. It doesn't have to be 20 minutes or 30 minutes, 2 minutes. It could be as simple as drinking water throughout the day. I've talked to many doctors who just don't hydrate themselves. To me, that's self-care. Your body, we're made up of water. You need to drink water. And I think so many people would feel better physically, energy-wise, if they just drank more water. So self-care doesn't have to be anything fancy or intricate or big. It's kind of like going back to the basics. And so, yes, we are busy, but adding these things can make a huge difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And you kind of mentioned the drinking more water and some other kind of steps. Do you have any other practical tips that you would give to our audience, who is mainly residents, fellows, newly attending, those people who are still in the training aspect?
Yeah, I think another aspect of self-care, it's what you think of caring for your body, but also caring for yourself emotionally. And that comes down to boundaries. And I think self-care in medicine, a lot of it is about boundaries. And it's hard when you're in training because you're not the boss, you're not in control. You show up and you're told what to do and where to be, and you're answering to someone else. But you can start to practice boundaries in ways, or at least noticing what your boundaries are. I think that's the hardest part, is that we get so focused in medicine doing what we're supposed to do that we don't even know what we want. And so a lot of, especially women, come out of training and they become attendings and they're working and they don't even know, is this what I want? Why am I doing this? They're just going, going, going. So I think in training, slowing down and again, for a few minutes, not for a long amount of time, but checking in with your body and noticing what emotions and sensations you're feeling, that can really clue you into how you're feeling about the work you're doing, or the assignment you were given, or a new task, or the hours you're working, and getting clear, when I'm out of training, I want to do it this way. For me, it was about starting 30 minutes later in my day so I could be with my kids in the morning. I couldn't do that as a resident. I can't just tell the attending, I'm coming in late so I can have breakfast with my family. But as an attending, I can. So in training, you can kind of notice what are those things that you want to prioritize when you're done, and the changes that you want to make to your schedule. And then you ask for that once you get out of training in your, in your contract negotiations and looking at jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. The second episode of Unscripted, we talked about burnout with Dr. Menon, and she talked a lot about those applicable ways of how to recognize it first, but then how to treat it in a way that it's so applicable for anyone's life, not even those just in medicine. Mm-hmm. I think that's super valuable to remember. So how did you navigate your transition between your training and then your attending?
Well, I would say not gracefully. I mean, kind of going back to what I was saying, I personally experienced this, and many clients I've worked with, other physicians, it's slowly getting better. You're a med student, and then you become an intern, and then you become an attending, and it's incrementally getting better, but it's still not great. So I became an attending and I stayed at the same place, which I'm happy about, but it's still academic medicine, and was just working long hours and taking on tasks that I didn't necessarily want to. And so it's kind of just a continuation in a way of residency to fellowship and on. So I think in terms of advice and doing it differently, that's where it comes back to what I was saying of noticing what you do want in your schedule and what you do want in your day-to-day. Because I kind of just kept going, and that was part of the reason I had burnout so fast, is that I was going at the same level of intensity and the same mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you kind of share any personal experiences that you had with self-care and how that really helped you and kind of where you were at before and then after, just to give like a applicable story?
Of like a specific self-care act or
Yeah. Yeah.
um well, so one thing I mentioned was changing my schedule. Well, here's a big one. I was full time, and then after I had my first son, I went to 4 days a week. And but still, it still felt like I was there all the time. It really wasn't a huge difference. And so then after my second child was born, I went to 3 days a week, and that was huge for me. And I'm not saying like the only way to not experience burnout is to go part time. Like you can be full time and
Mm-hmm.
get a fulfillment and enjoyment, but being at the job that I'm at, and I'm also a glaucoma specialist, and there's a shortage of glaucoma doctors where I'm at, and I mean, really in the whole country. And so it's impossible for me to be at work and not be super busy. So I thought, well, I'm going to be here seeing 40 to 50 patients a day. I'd rather just do it 2 days a week instead of 4 days. And then, I'm in surgery the other day. So that's my 3 days a week. But that was a way that I kind of like decided to take care of myself, was limiting the amount of exposure to the intensity that I was working. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's such a applicable way to, you don't always have to cut the hours, right? But you saw how intense it was. And I feel like that like mentally and then physically draining,
Mm-hmm.
and recognizing that wear and tear, for you is so important. So then you can be a better mom, a better wife, serve people better.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you advocate for self-care in your workplace?
I think it's important to be first honest with yourself and what self-care is for you. And so it's different for everyone. And I think the first step is to take that time and really get clear on what you want. And that's comes down to asking yourself, what do I want? And then asking for it. And it sounds simple and silly, but again, in medicine, we're not used to asking for what we want because we are in this mindset that we have to work hard and not ask for anything and be a team player, and asking for what we want is not congruent with those other things, which is not true. So speaking up for yourself and being honest, and you can't ask for what you can't have what you don't ask for. So that's kind of the first step.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have any practical strategies of implementing, kind of recognizing and then implementing self-care?
Well, I think recognizing it's, again, such a personal thing, but it can be like the basic things we talked about already, sleeping more, eating a more balanced diet, drinking water, taking breaks throughout the day, meditating. But it could also be hobbies or things you enjoy, maybe things you used to do when you were younger and, had more time, or even things as a kid. I talk to clients about playing as an adult and what that looks like for them and how important that is, and, accessing that creativity. So once you can kind of figure out what those are, those things that maybe you used to do or that you want to do, implementing that and not being a perfectionist about it. Like that's the key, I think, too, is that we get in this all or none thinking of, I have to work out an hour a day or meditate for 20 minutes. And so the practical side of it is to say, like, let me try this. I may not be great at it yet, but I'm going to dabble in it. I'm going to do 5 minutes here or there. I may not do it every day. I may just do it once a week, and that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. How would you say you balance the demands of being like a mom, a wife, a doctor, a life coach? How do you balance all of that?
It takes slowing down and checking in. It's a constant kind of self-evaluation, and it's always changing too. So some weeks I may be more focused on my clinical practice. The other thing that, we haven't even mentioned is I actually help my husband with his business too. So I have 4 jobs, and some weeks it's just, not every week is the same. So it balances makes it sound like every week I have the same amount of time and attention and energy to each thing I'm doing. And it's not like, so some weeks are different, and that's okay. I'm okay with that. But it's about slowing down and checking in and seeing what needs my attention and what do I want to put my attention on this week.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Like slowing down, checking in any stage in life, whether you've been attending for a while or you're still in training, it's just so important to realize that and prioritize that self-care, you know?
Yeah.
What advice would you give to our audience from today? What's the main thing you want them to take away?
I think the main thing is to start having that introspection. I think we kind of lose ourselves in medicine, and it's become more apparent to me as I've become a parent. And now I understand what it is to lose yourself in becoming a parent, which means like you get so focused on your kids' needs that you don't know what your own needs are. And so now I see how that had happened to me in medicine before I became a parent. And so kind of like what we were saying earlier, if you get to medical school and residency and you're going, and you have your checklist and you know what you need to do. So it's more about what you need to do than what you want to do. So taking that time to start noticing what is it that you want, whether it's career wants, life wants, and not just goals, not just a checklist, but like things to slow down, things that don't necessarily produce results. Coming back to that, like creativity or play or self-care, things that kind of nourish you and energize you. So if you get one thing from this talk, it's, kind of tune into yourself and start to pay attention to what you truly want and like the emotions that are happening within you, because we also get really good at compartmentalizing our emotions in training.
Yes. So good. So good. Do you feel like there's any specific challenges or obstacles that attending physicians kind of face when trying to prioritize self-care?
Well, we kind of already addressed the one of time. And so that's always going to be an issue. And I think, a lot of us get this narrative, I don't have enough time. But the truth is, there's a limited amount of time and you make time for things that are important. So instead of telling yourself that story, I don't have time, it's more of deciding like, what do I want to make time for and what's important to me, and not being overly ambitious and taking the wins where you can. Sometimes I'll get like a 10-minute workout in. It's better than nothing versus, trying to do an hour-long workout. And then the other, obstacle I see is I think that we're all kind of a little hesitant to voice that our self-care and our wants and desires because of the culture in medicine. And so I think being brave and being the trailblazer and being, the role model for the younger generations and speaking up for what you want and taking time for yourself and taking breaks, it's going to benefit you, but it's also going to help change the culture. And for anyone who's nervous about, being the one standing out, it's okay. People don't have to understand or agree, but it's the way we're moving towards, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of going off of that, where do you hope to see in terms of the evolution of self-care awareness within the medical community?
Yeah, I hope, and I think it is starting to become more apparent. I think it's not just within healthcare workers, but honestly, even among patients. I see that a lot, that patients will get really frustrated with the wait times or, very annoyed. And it's like, they don't see us as humans too with needs. And so I'm hoping that shifts as well. And, I hate that they have to wait, and I don't like making people wait, but there's only one of me. And, hopefully as we get more people in the workforce and better staffing, the waits will be better, but it's kind of like it goes both ways. So hopefully we can increase awareness among healthcare professionals, but also among the people we take care of.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you kind of share a little bit about your coaching business?
Yeah. So I mentioned I work with physicians, typically women, but I work with burned out physicians and, physicians who are just looking for more work-life balance as well. I work with them one-on-one, and we work together over 12 weeks. And it's been really rewarding. Really enjoy it.
Yeah, awesome. Well, where can our audience find that?
My website's Dr. Tala, so doctor spelled out, and then my name, Tala, drtala.com. And then I'm on Instagram at drtala.key. And Facebook, I have a Facebook page. It's the same, Dr. Tala, and LinkedIn.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It was great to have you on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to thank Dr. Tala Kassem for joining us today. I hope our conversation has shed some light on the importance of remembering your core values and your purpose while in the midst of your medical career. Stay tuned for more discussions on important topics in the medical field, and one way to do that is to like and subscribe so you'll never miss an episode. I'm your host, Addisyn Ueling, and we'll see you next time on Unscripted.